We are now live in Facebook. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello, hello. I am going to make sure that I can see the comments in Facebook, so give me just a second. And I'm going to shout out some stuff. What is this group? Self-care. There we go. All right. Sherry, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to make sure before I try to do multitasking on you people, not you people, I apologize. As we're going to start with talking some racial trauma and / collective trauma. So let's get started with my commercial. I hope everyone, let me give it a couple more minutes to let people sign in, because it's
okay.
We usually, depending on which place a person signs in / the Zoom or Instagram or the live, I want to make sure we give time for people to come in so we can kind of talk about some things and be present, and also have people who have questions to share with us. So let's just give it a couple minutes or a couple seconds before we get started.
Sounds good.
So how's your day going, Sharea?
So it's been good. A little bit busy comparison to other days. I went, had to do some grocery shopping today. So I went and did that. I did some more volunteering for the food pantry at my church. So they get deliveries for like different items throughout the week. So I went to help out with that. So definitely getting a little bit of my workout in. This is arm day. All the boxes will be lifting.
So today is my rest day because I didn't sleep well last night. And so, and I have no real, I think I pinpointed it a little bit after like going through the things I said we talked about last week, which was identifying your emotions, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I pinpointed why I haven't been sleeping. So I'll talk about that a little bit too. Okay. But before we get started, I want to do a shout out to my Trenton's finest. Shout out. I'm from Trenton, everyone, at Trenton, New Jersey. If you haven't known that, you will know it now. So I try my hardest to support where I can. And so I'm going to shout out Star for creating this awesome wrap. Now, you can do it in multiple ways, but I love to have a little bit of hair out. So I did this awesome wrap and a matching mask. How about that?
And that is really, really, really cute.
Fly. Can you say fly, people? Look, I can breathe in it. Like, seriously, because the other one I have, I feel like it's just, like, I can't breathe in it. So this is awesome because I am able to match and style out on you, but I also still am protected and safe. Again, right. I will tag her in the post. Star does all kinds of different prints, but I specifically love all of the African prints and the more cultural prints that she does. And I just feel like it's an awesome way to support some Black business and Black women's businesses specifically. So that said, I got to take it off in the house because
I love that. I love how you can be safe and fashionable at the same time.
Like when I saw them online, I was like, oh, she's from Trenton and I get to look cute. I'm in. So I will actually put her information in the comment section later. So if you're interested in checking out her stuff, I think she also has an Etsy shop. So it's just, to me, a great way to support other Black women and to still be styling, right? I actually grabbed this real quick to put in my hair because I had a different style altogether. But I was like, I was going to do the ball at the top. I was like, no, let me give myself a little bang. I'm going to go for the whole, what's that girl who sings that Rise Up, whatever? So I'm styling a little bit differently just so that I can promote my sister from Trenton, which is my hometown. And I don't know her website right off, but I do know that once I will tag her so she can give you her information and how you can either get this style or a different one. Like, she has multiple types of wraps and masks and different things that I think are really cool. And she's also a seamstress who does like dresses, skirts, whatever. So shout out to Star for making sure I got mine so I can look cute when I'm going to the grocery store, because that's about as far as I've been going these days. So that said, I will put her information in the box. Again, matching styling. Just thought you should know. On that
And
note,
the earrings go with the set. Look, they look like they came with a set too.
oh, wow. See, these are already mine. But before we go on, actually, since we're talking business, we have now dedicated in our Self-Care for Black Girls group Saturday to Small Business Saturdays. Sharea and I both have some history in trying to develop businesses as well as coaching related to business. And so we are going to bring together our expertise to do some videos live and videos recorded. And so this Saturday at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time, we will be live in our group, Self-Care for Black Girls. If you're not in the actual group, come on and check us out. And we will be talking small business Saturday and some tips for starting and maintaining and developing a business. All right, Sherry, I'm gonna let you start the day. I did a commercial. I did 2 commercials and didn't even know it.
But it's great information that everyone can use. So definitely join us on Saturday, and also purchase a face mask as well to support small businesses. So definitely related. Okay, so let's jump into a topic that everyone is talking about for like the past 2 days. Now, at least I've seen it on social media. So we have, and please forgive me if I pronounce their name wrong, but it's Ahmaud Arbery and Sean Reed. These are our most recent victims that we have been made aware of anyway, when it comes to police brutality. With Ahmaud, though, the incident actually occurred back in February. And now is just getting somewhat mainstream coverage when it comes to just the details and everything coming out. And now the video has been released. On a personal level, I can say is that it took me a few hours just to really think about, just to start processing my own emotions related to it. And just looking at social media, I did see a lot of people are angry, frustrated, hurt, disappointed, they feel unsafe, which are all very valid emotions. And so we just wanted to start off the broadcast today just to take a moment to address the fact that, hey, you may also have this concern about these 2 news stories, and to talk about how you can process through it as well.
Yeah, and just knowing that the processing of this information for us is layered depending on your background and your culture and what you experience in this country as within your race and also gender. And so I think for us as Black women, specifically since we are in streaming this live in our Self-Care for Black Girls group, I think if we, really look at the reality of living in a world that doesn't value us the same as our counterparts, it can become a stressful way to navigate in general. And so what we really wanted to talk about today when we thought about our individual feelings around receiving or getting this just yet again another story about a tragic ending for one of our Black men or women, depending on the story. It really is something that is about a racial trauma and a collective trauma for us as a community. Whether we process it that way or not, we have generations of experiences related to this. And I think it becomes extremely important to realize what your tolerance level is related to how much you can handle and how much you can actually process the information without it becoming toxic for yourself. And so I am an advocate of not feeling like you are obligated or giving yourself the permission to not have to watch the video. So I personally have not watched the video. I have probably for the last few years not watched any videos related to the attack or the terrorism against Black bodies. And so for me, that's my personal decision. However, I'm still as outraged, still as angered, and still as hurt as someone who may have viewed the video. And I feel very strongly that for me personally, just because of how it relates to trauma, for me, it's not something that I'm interested or want to do, but I also am still very much outraged about it. And so making sure you are aware of your tolerance around even your exposure to the trauma, your exposure to the amount of information that is coming as a result of the trauma. Because one of the first things that I thought today, I posted about this a few weeks back, and one of the first things I thought was, when the video came out, it becomes so real to us. It comes so real for us. However, the saddest part to me is that it shouldn't take another video for outrage. It shouldn't take another experience of death by one of our Black men or one of our Black bodies, regardless of gender, for us to feel this outrage and anger. However, it is happening. And then the second thought that I had was these are someone's sons. This is someone's brother, cousin, uncle, friend. Like, these are people who are outside of our own domain, and we all have ownership over them now because of their experience is publicized. However, those family members, I just deeply feel a level of sorrow for, because no one wants to be the sample for the community, right? And no one wants to be the story or the highlight or the news line for the community. And so I think for me personally, I prayed immediately this morning and really deeply for the family members, because I can only imagine the layers of grief that comes along with also having to share your experience with the entirety of the country. So those are my two things, like making sure that you're aware. You don't have to watch this video if you don't want to, and you can still be outraged and be impassioned by wanting to do something or support, and still not have to watch the video to be exposed to the trauma if that's not something you can handle.
Yeah, no, my one point is definitely very similar when it comes to, like, I get tired of the fact that we have to always show or try to prove our humanity. So why is it that, again, the outrage doesn't happen until a video is released? Like, we're watching someone literally have their last moments. Like, we shouldn't have to prove that we're humane by showing our last moments. And so it's very frustrating, because with our white counterparts, whenever something happens and, you know, violence, trauma, they're murdered, you just see their nice polished picture, and now the country mourns the loss of this person. You don't have to see the details of the traumatic experience that resulted in their ending. But now when it comes to Black people, now, you know, we have to prove that the police—
We have to prove our life worth.
Yes.
Like,
and then the other part of it too, that even is related to with Ahmaud, he was not actually burglarizing the neighborhood. He was doing his jogging, his little exercise that he did on several times a week. But the flip side of it, let's say if him or someone else was, the point of having our justice system is that they're innocent until proven guilty. You don't go out as a neighborhood vigilante and you just kill someone before you even have all the facts. They had no history, no facts, no evidence. And even if they were able to get evidence, it's not their job to take the life. No one deserves to die because of robbery. We're not in times, or we don't live in a country, at least on paper, where that's supposed to be our ideal. But that's the reality that we keep living in, is that Black people are consistently brutalized and murdered for just breathing, for existing, for walking down the street with a sweatshirt and a bag of Skittles. You know, and so it's just like, I just want us
to prove your humanity after. Like, so you have to prove why you didn't deserve to get shot. You have to prove why, in this situation or this example of the story, somehow it's your proof, your burden to prove to others that your life was worth living. Like, that in itself is why when people say Black Lives Matter, it really does. It's a very specific indicator, because if it was that all lives matter, we wouldn't have to do that. If you really acknowledge that you were doing something actively against Black bodies all the time, that shows that they don't have the same rights, they don't have the same justice system. I mean, there's multi-layers of what shows that Black lives do need to matter, specifically their lives. And knowing that your justice system, your social beliefs about us, right? Because he's not even in this guy is a retired person of whatever kind of background he had. I think he had a police background or some kind of investigator background. You have all these backgrounds, but you're retired. You're not taking you're not the police, right? And even though I don't even trust that would have made it any safer for him. So, but that's just the truth. But it just comes down to, why should I have to prove that I'm innocent versus you assuming my innocence and then finding guilt? I don't have to prove my humanity for you to realize that my life is worth living. And
that's what will stop having this problem, when we have to stop proving our humanity. Like, the fact that we are breathing, we are humans, we have the same rights, we have the same values, we're worth the same amount as just anyone else. And it's just, I think the other part too for me is just that in the midst of this global pandemic, we're still not seen on the same plane. Like, that's the other part that's getting me. Like, we're going through this And not that I really thought that it was, but it's one like this was just a reminder where
yeah, like we're not all on the same page, right? Because that was everybody's story at the beginning of the pandemic. We're all in this together. We're all in this together differently, right? Because you may live in a neighborhood where you can get to a grocery store, or you have a car to get to a grocery store when someone else is a food desert, right? So let's not say we're all in this together when we literally don't have the same circumstances in our communities, and literally in our black and brown communities, there is an absence of food and product for anyone to even get to. So you're not in this the same. So, and this is just more proof that we're not.
Absolutely. So that's, I guess, our hot topic, pressing topic. We just wanted to make sure that we did address it because we know a lot of people are talking about it and seeing it now. Our prayers are with, the families of the victims, and even with the other individuals involved as well. Is that my prayer is that justice will finally penetrate the hearts of everyone in this nation. Just justice, love, and just humanity and care for everyone. So let's transition a little bit.
I guess we could transition to one shout out to is National Prayer Day. So if you are a person of faith and you're a person of where prayer is how you consider healing or taking care of each other as well as yourself, I think today is an opportunity for us to also acknowledge that those in faith have a responsibility to make sure that they are praying for justice and for it to penetrate through not just the individuals, but through our actual systems, and for it to be in a way that changes us all and not just changes the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to give anyone and everyone the opportunity, if they have anything they want to mention or say about this subject, feel free to do so. I do think it's important that, again, you monitor how much of the social media and or other things that might be negative news related to the subject, monitor how much you can handle and how much you can tolerate. There is no right or wrong way to be able to be an advocate or even outraged with learning about this information. You don't have to saturate your entire day with articles and all those things about it for you to still be impassioned or outraged. And take care of yourself in these moments.
Absolutely. Yeah, emotional boundaries are really healthy, and you don't have less compassion just because you put those boundaries in place. I'm going to be honest, when I first heard about it, I had to stop scrolling. I had to get off social media because then once I saw the first post, it's like every other post after that was talking about these, and then you see the video being circulated, and I was just like, okay, let me just step back, and I need to process. And I actually jotted down my feelings just to help me to process through it, because I was just like, okay, there's a lot of things going through my mind. Let me at least write just to get this out. And then I just step back, from it, because, and to be honest, that's a luxury I have, is being able to step back because, I'm not a direct family member, of those, the two victims that we have now learned about. But yeah, the thing about it is that, like, you definitely have to make sure you're still taking care of yourself, because if you spiral down, into helplessness or, just feeling alone or, feeling like you're going to be next or you could be next, just that's not going to have you in the healthiest state of mind.
Yeah. And it's where we really need to make sure we identify what we're feeling. I think, like you said, jotting down what you actually felt, what type of things you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself in this moment. And then how can I help, right? Mm-hmm. What can I do, right? So I definitely feel like sharing the post is part of our responsibility so that it can go viral, so that it can be known that this is just another example of why this country's justice system is not fair. I do think there is a reason for us to see it on our Facebook strolls or in our different social medias, right? I do feel very deeply that social media in that way has allowed us to have a larger voice together and a collective voice. However, I do also, in feeling that way, acknowledge that means that I need to take the break personally to be able to regulate it. Not that I want them to stop sharing it. I actually appreciate the sharing because it's also an acknowledgement that more people are outraged, right? But I also know that for me, reading 10 stories about it would be too much, right? So finding your emotional tolerance.
Yeah, and then the other part too, and this is why I knew I had to step off, is that so when I kept seeing the video circulated, but then I also started seeing a difference between who was posting about it and who was not.
Mhm.
There was definitely a distinction on my timeline as far as, so there were two somewhat popular topics. The one was the incidents with Ahmad and Sean. And then the other thing was conspiracy theories about, COVID-19 and everything that's happening between that. And it was a very stark difference of the demographic of who was posting what. And so it just like there was a frustration and anger and hurt that began to come out of that, where I just like, okay, like I need to process and write down what I'm feeling so that I can get this out in like a healthier way. So yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
had
it's
to step
definitely
back
a
for a second.
distinct difference. Like,
Yeah, because it's one of those things where, especially when, because I try to be very intentional about who's on my feeds. Like, of course, I have close family and friends, but these are people who I've worked with, people that I've went to school with, people that I've met just in different volunteer organizations that I've been a part of. And it is always disheartening, and in some ways it makes me angry. And I don't think anger is a bad thing, because I'm not using my anger to now go out and lash about someone else. But it makes me angry when I see that individuals can be so passionate about everything else but our humanity. Is that you can be so frustrated and enraged about, conspiracy theories about everything else. Or even the one story I remember a few years ago was with Cecil the lion. I don't know if you remember that. When he was killed, it was this popular lion.
oh
His
yeah,
name
yeah.
was, and again, I mean, just the
Outrage and
demographic
this, yeah.
who was so outraged about Cecil the lion, and that was in the midst when we were going back to back to back with police brutality incidents. And it's like, wait a minute. One, yes, animal lives are important. We don't want them to be extinct, but there's no way, like my
The
morale,
equation
my
shouldn't be
ethics,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
my faith, it values human life over animal life. And then you will never find me see more outrage over the life of an animal than the life of a human being. And so that's the thing that was so frustrating, where it's just like, there's outrage, you have it, you just choose to not demonstrate that.
You choose not to have the empathy and or the self-awareness that your input here has impact, because it also matters, right? So I don't think
Absolutely.
that there's a level of empathy that's missing, and you're also racist and don't realize it. Like, let's call a spade a spade. Like, the reality is that people may not believe they're racist, may not feel that they're racist, but that doesn't mean they don't participate in racism, right? Like, so
Right.
I feel like when it comes to the timelines and what they're sharing, I feel like we know very, very similar to any of the other incidents who's going to share what and what level of outrage. And I think even for me as a therapist, I was disheartened that in some of the groups that I share, that there really is no other, there's only really people of color who was sharing it. And that to me says, okay, so you aren't an ally, you don't have a voice or an advocating voice that says, hey, this is wrong regardless, and these are the people that I'm supposed to be serving, right? And supposed to have a level of empathy with, and yet I don't hear your voice now. So it's kind of hard for me to not get upset or angry at that. But I also know that, I mean, I've just, this whole experience has gotten me out of some of my therapy groups just for other reasons, but not just this one. But I mean, COVID-19 has actually helped me to decide that some groups aren't for me. so
Yeah,
I just
it's like,
think
it's
that
so much. It's just
there's so
so
many
much.
layers. And I think
Yeah.
just like the reality is that it's traumatic for the family, but it's traumatic for us as a collective whole, for Black people as individually, and then other people who care for us and love us. It's traumatic. And this experience is something that, again, just reinforces that we don't feel 100% safe in the country that we call home.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, that is where it does become our responsibility to see how we need to take care of each other. Who do we need to check on? Who do we need to count to make sure that they are seen and heard, and to make sure that they have a voice, right? So in some ways, this is not just about self-care, but also about collective care, right?
Yes.
This is going to fall differently on each person. And if you know that there's people who have had experiences directly with police brutality / being targeted because of their race or gender, this may fall very differently for them, and you may need to be a support for them. That's not a bad thing. That is also part of self-care, and also part of support and taking care of yourself is when you empathize to the point you take action, right? Because I think we can empathize, but then if you take no actions, then really your empathy falls on the wayside.
Yeah, and those actions look like talking to family members. Because here's the thing, like all the individuals that were involved in both these cases and all the cases that have gotten NETA over the years and the cases that have not, it's just that the people involved who end up taking the life of Black people just because of the fact that they're Black, that's really the basis of it, is that they're part of a larger system. They are part of a family who may or may not have either one created an environment that produced this racist perspective, or you just glossed over it and just ignored it. So whether you were complicit in, and so you have that, and then these individuals then become in positions to now influence and put systems and structures in place that perpetuate, like racism is not just the Ku Klux Klan with the white hoods on. Like, that's no, easy. Like racism
that's the racism we can identify without having to figure out who did it, who done it, right? There's a whole lot of overt and covert racism that we don't like to talk about, and systems being the first.
Absolutely. And our families, this is the first opportunity that we have to be able to start to chip away at the things that perpetuate and maintain these systems and allow them to continue to flourish. Mm-hmm. And so that's the part that, even that I was processing through and thinking through with trying to understand what was my biggest frustration is that these incidents are not isolated. These individuals are part of larger communities and families and systems and policies and structures. Yes, that allow this stuff to be okay and for it to continue to happen. So there's a lot of work to do for all of us, but I just really hope, or I pray, my prayer is that everyone will get involved in the fight for justice and to see that just this needs to stop.
And that Black lives deserve to flourish and live. Just to be existing in this world and trying to maintain safety by not being a problem to others. They deserve to be able to navigate the world the same way any other group does, with freedoms, right? And Absolutely. That includes the freedom to run, the freedom to walk, the freedom to have a good time, to laugh loud, to sell things, to sell CDs if they're illegal or not. I think just the freedoms to have choices that won't eliminate their lives.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we were like, oh, we're not gonna talk about it long, but it's just such a hard thing not to talk about, and such an outrage that we are here again, and we're already dealing with the COVID-19 and being home and isolated and feeling like we have to find ways to take care of ourselves, and then just one way being taken away from us just because if someone doesn't like the way we look or determine that we're not safe for their community, they can take our lives. So.
Right.
All right, what was our transition? Remember we had a transition, we had a plan.
Yeah, so the transition was like emotional boundaries. So we wanted to talk about, so this discussion is part of our larger topic of just emotional boundaries. We didn't want to ignore the fact that we know a lot of people are talking about this. I'm talking about Sean and Ahmad. And so Sharea already mentioned one aspect of emotional boundaries when it comes to even societal and racial trauma is putting those boundaries in place of how you are inundating yourself with your information. Definitely be informed, find out what's happening, but there has to be a cutoff point. You have to take care of yourself and find ways to release. So for me, writing, and I'm going to do a little bit more writing, honestly, later on and processing through it, but that's helping me to process and be honest about what I'm feeling, but to also not allow it to fester and bottle up within. And so that's the way that I'm trying to be intentional about having emotional boundaries specifically related to these two news stories so that I can make sure that I am, say that again.
I just want to just that real quick in the journaling portion, being okay with keeping that or letting it go. It's okay to keep the journal if you choose to, but it's also okay to throw it out, trash it, because it does not feed you and or it may continue the outrage. So you might really literally release in the journal just to get it off your chest. You may have no more reasoning than that, but it'd be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for me, like, I also just being creative, it helps me to process through things. Like, I've learned that over the past few years. So there's going to be something else that comes out of this. It's just that, you know, not exactly sure just what that's going to look out yet, but that's another way that helps me too. So, but again, like, just, I had to stop once I got the information about the stories and found out what happened and incidents were involved. It's kind of like, okay, I'm informed. I know what's happening. I know what I'm upset about. And then now let me move on to something else, where it's just like, it's not that I don't care. It's not that I don't have compassion, but for my own emotional health, I had to just move on. And so having emotional boundaries, what that looks like just in general is being able to be honest about what you feel, but then also not allowing unnecessary things or people or issues to come in to exacerbate that. So, you know, whether it's like cutting off the news.
And honor being outraged. Like, honor that. Like, there is nothing wrong with feeling outraged because a life was taken. Like, I think what we don't want you to think is we're saying, like, let it go and move on. Because by far, please don't let this go. Please don't move on in that sense. But be able to honor that you have outrage, you have anger, you have hurt, you have a multitude of emotions connected to this collective and racial trauma that we experience often now in this country, or feels like often, right? You have the right to be outraged, and you have a right to honor that emotion, and allowing it to be released in a way that doesn't hurt you is really the tool that I would like for us to take away or walk away with, right? So you get outraged, be outraged. Maybe outrage is what they need from us, right? And as they get that, we still need to honor that in that outrage. We need to still know how to take care of ourselves, because if you are not taking care of yourself, you can only be outraged so long before it takes you out.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think it really comes down to we are our best selves when we care for ourselves.
Yes.
So emotional boundaries. So what else are we talking about in terms of our support this week? We can go into our coping skills. I don't even know what time it is.
It's we're about a little over halfway through.
What time is it?
4:35. So we're a little like at the halfway point.
Yeah, so we didn't do too bad. I mean, that was more controlled than we thought. Like,
yeah.
So, and I don't want you to think we take it lightly at all. So if you want to bring it up throughout the rest of the presentation or conversation, feel free to do that, because we will definitely go where this takes us. But we also want to make sure that we still talk coping skills. So what are our coping skills that we're dealing with? We talked emotional boundaries. So I think that also includes like your negative input or output. Like, how much are you taking in? Like, do you, and not just in this story, but just in general. So I was talking to one of my therapists today earlier, and she was saying that she literally had to stop reading the comments on the tweets from our governor, because she was just checking the tweets to find out information about what the status is. And that was her daily check-in. But she found that every time she would go into the comment sections, it would get her so riled up and upset, because it's like, how foolish are these people, or how angering they would get her. And then she was like, I'm more wrapped up or now wound up over the comments than the information that I might have gotten from his one tweet. So her goal was to stop reading the comments. I think that has been my goal in life lately when it comes to any post. I just want to read the story and get out of there. I find that comments have outraged me to the point I don't even want to do it. So I don't read most comments either, but it's a boundary for me not to have as much negative input, because there are some people who literally just spend their life trolling and or being negative. And so you want to make sure that you don't oversaturate yourself with negative media and or comments from what you may really want to get with just information. So boundaries with negative input of media and social media, as well as the news. That's not just social media, because I think, watching the news and or some of these talk shows about what's going on with Trump or what's going on with COVID-19 can get us very emotional And if we allow, it can keep us there. So being able to have boundaries with how much social media you're actually taking in. What are some other negative outlets or sources that could be? Family.
It could be people. Like, even it could be like, say that again.
I was gonna say family and friends could also be.
And that's what I was about to say. I was gonna say family and friends, because you can have issues where people will invalidate your emotions because either they don't understand, they don't agree, or they think you're taking it to extreme. And so you want to not allow people to invalidate what you feel. When you have a reaction to something, you're valid in that reaction. There's nothing wrong with your initial response. It's really how you decide to handle that response. Now, if you decide to be irresponsible with that response, that's another discussion. But the initial feelings of anger or hurt or rejection or pain, or if you want to cry, whatever it is, just that's a normal response.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't want to allow people to invalidate that, say, oh, you're overreacting, or you're too sensitive, or you're such a crybaby. You know, things like that, where people are now invalidating your human response to a situation. And just, you don't want to allow that to take in and then allow you to get to the point where you don't healthily express your emotions, or you start to bottle them up. Like, I know, like for me, I'm a crier. I hate crying in front of people, but if something bothers me, I'm going to cry. Now, here's the thing. Don't take my crying for weakness. That's sometimes people, they see you crying, they think like, oh.
Well, that's sad that we even have to preference that, right? Where it's like, don't take my crying for weakness, because crying should never be seen as a weakness. It's actually a healthy form of release, right? It's a healthy form.
Yeah, for me, it's best for me to cry it out, because if I don't cry it out, it's going to come out probably in a very unhealthy way.
Well, so and it might come out in anger or frustration and rage, right? So then, like, so people would prefer you not to cry, but then what's the alternative? To hurt yourself or someone else?
Right, and you don't want to do that, because then it's like, if you say something to me and I decide to punch you instead, then you're going to be upset that I punched you. You know, so it's one of the things where it's like, it's either cry or punch you. Don't want to catch a case, so I'm going to cry. Right?
You just cried then. Like.
Right. So that's the thing, where people don't always understand the processes that go on mentally before you just decide how you're going to express your emotions, right? And sometimes crying is really for your safety.
Yeah. You know, well, and it's about releasing the emotion in a healthy way, and crying is healthy. Like, some people who need to cry.
Yeah. So don't
feel so sorry for them when they don't.
Like, right. There's don't allow people to make you feel bad.
Yeah, like, don't let them make you feel bad for any of your emotions, right? So if we start looking at emotions as not the negative, but the actions that we take after the emotions as the possible negative, then we can separate the two, right? So anger is not the negative. How you release that anger is the negative. Sadness is not a negative. How you release that in a way that could be damaging to yourself or others is the issue, right? And so being able to realize that the emotion is never the negative thing. It's determining what is a healthy way for me to release it, so that other people don't get impacted, or I don't impact myself, right? In a way that's negative. All right, so we have boundaries around negative input, meaning the media, social media, and all those areas in our lives as well. And we have emotional boundaries. What else?
Are we still talking about from the negative aspects, or we want to talk about the positive aspects?
Go for it. Positive is always good. Let's get some of it.
Yeah, so let's talk about some positive ways to have emotional boundaries. So one of the things I do is that there's some phone calls I will not take.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on what's going on. So let's say if I'm, so here's a good example. So it's been almost a month now where someone really close to me passed away. And when I got the news, it was tough, you know, just taking that phone call. So I got a couple other phone calls right after that, didn't take them. Because it's one of those things where I knew I needed to give myself some time, but then there was one person who did call. It's actually with Sharea. I took her phone call, and here's the reason why. I knew that she would give space to what I was feeling, but I also knew too that she cared, and that she would also allow me to be able to process it through it in a way and be able to still continue with my day too. Because that's the one thing that I was talking to her, and I said, well, okay, yes, this is very sad. But I also know that for me, I need to still do what I had scheduled for today. And so my positive was connecting with someone that I knew that would let me feel what I was feeling, but then also encourage and support me to do what I need to do to still be overall in a good space too. So my positive is that I talk to people who are going to help me out. Now, you know, if I'm
and
not
doing the same for those other people in your lives, right? So it's good to be a source of positive, but it's also good to know where you get your refill from, right? So if you know that you have a draining friend, you have a draining coworker, you have a draining boss, you have a draining someone, you need to be able to make sure you're balancing with the required contact versus the not required, right? So I have like times where literally if it's work related, I am not picking up and I am not calling back until those hours are done. So that could be an hour, it could be 2, or it could be a whole rest of the evening, depending on what time it is. So making sure that you create your boundaries so that you can have that separation of negative and positive in your life. And then reaching out to the people that make you laugh. Like like this past Sunday, we did a little, I guess, girls' night on Zoom, and that was fun. It was just relaxing, laughs, and we literally played some games because they have to indulge me in my games because I'm like the game player. And so I enjoyed it, but I'm sure everybody was like, Sharea, do we really got to do games? But it's something that makes me happy. And my friends sometimes they indulge my little things, but it makes for a good break from any negativity, any kind of like any extra things that might be going on in the world. We're just here to laugh, enjoy each other's company. And we still talk to some serious stuff. We talked investments at the beginning. We talked about like colleges and things that like that for the young ladies in our lives. And so it was a good hearty conversation that gives us a chance to refill so that when other conversations are heavier, you're not drained all the way before then. So be able to balance and knowing who you can get to fill you up, and hopefully that you're not always taking, right? So being mindful that if you are struggling emotionally, if you are heavy, I don't even know if people have the self-awareness sometimes, but if you do notice that you are heavy and you have a lot of emotional weight, it may be okay to start looking into talking to someone, a therapist, going to a support group, doing something that can help you to kind of process why you're in this space of negativity that you may not have even been in prior to COVID-19, right? So finding those things for yourself is going to be important, but also the give and take. Like every relationship can't be a take and every relationship can't be a give. So if you find yourself always giving, then that means that relationship isn't giving you back what you need. But if you find yourself always taking, you need to check yourself as well. Like everything isn't about you.
No, it isn't. What's some other like things I say that I personally do just for emotional boundary? I'll just have fun. I think we talked about that 2 weeks ago too. We're just having silly moments. Like I was cracking myself up last night because there was I don't know if the song came on a TV or commercial or I was listening to music on my phone, but I was singing along and I was putting on a whole little performance for those little 30 seconds, and I just started giggling to myself like, Sharea, you were so silly. But that helps me to be able to again just process through anything and just the positive aspects of having emotional boundaries where just remembering to laugh. Like no matter what's going on, no matter how crazy or serious things may be, is that it's still okay to laugh, and just to have those moments. So that is just finding things that make me laugh, whether that's watching even funny videos on YouTube, like Kev on Stage. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yes. Oh my gosh. He always cracks me up. Like most times I can get a good laugh off of him. It's like, yeah, we're on the same page with that.
Kev on Stage is silly, and that's a huge understatement. But yeah, so watching funny videos like that. I'm not the person that likes cat videos, so I won't watch those. But maybe you are, so you can just watch cat videos.
I will. I ain't gonna lie. Some of them get me. I am there. Like some of them will get me, and I'll be like, "Oh my god, this cat is so amazing," or funny, or whatever the case is. I can't go into like a spiral into them, but occasionally I'll watch.
Yeah. So just watching funny videos, or listen to like my favorite songs. Like there's artists that I really like a lot. There's songs that just have a lot of meaning to me, just for various reasons. So I'll just put on some music. Sometimes it's like, I just need to listen to some music. So that's a way for me to be able to have that space. And if I'm listening to that favorite song, hey, nothing else is important right now. I'm going to listen to the song,
I know,
and then after the song, I'll get back to, whatever I need to do. Another thing is taking breaks throughout the day. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I definitely have continued, or trying to at least be intentional about, is just taking healthy breaks. Because sometimes you can get like into the aspect of going from one task to another to another to another, and just feeling worn down after. So just taking breaks and resting, you know.
Yes.
So that's one thing that I'm definitely trying to make sure that I incorporate that in a way that I can keep this up even after our new normal comes into play. I know that
because there's no going back to this normal that people think it's going back to. We're
yeah.
First off, when was there ever a normal? But anyway, we have a statement in the group that I want to kind of talk about.
Okay.
If you want to read it, or I guess you can maybe summarize it, because I think that was kind of what we started saying we were going to talk about when we were in a break.
Yeah, do you want me to read it out loud?
You can read it out loud or summarize it, whichever.
Okay. Oh, okay. So this person is saying that with the pandemic that's going on, that has made them feel more like redrawn and than they were before the pandemic happened. And so like how like now they're becoming more okay with being by themselves. And so they're saying that they are typically a social butterfly, but now that they've been in this space of just wanting just more alone time. And so they don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing or a good thing when it comes to just really coping with the pandemic.
So I'm going to say it could be either, right? So it could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. So I say that because it's a maybe, right? Because each person's individual situation is related to their experience with COVID-19 and what is going on, but also with their previous relationships and how much they were giving, right? And so I'm going to take this in a two-parter. So I'm going to take it as if it's a good thing or if it's a negative, right? So it's a good thing if you needed the rest, right? It's a good thing if this is unintended. So no one, I love how people are like, oh, I'm going to go in, and we talked about the productivity thing or whatever, but nobody plans this. Nobody sat around and was like, oh, Lord, I'm asking for me to get exactly this amount of days so that I can be home to take care of this amount of things. But remember, I also might be at risk for getting sick and dying. Wait, look, nobody asked for this. So I really want people to stop with the whole, like, this is our moment. No, like, it can be your moment. I think that word is really important. It can be, and it may be an opportunity, but for another person, it may not be, because this is an emotional state that also deals with their safety and how they may even feel about their safety, right? And so when we talk about medical safety or physical safety, it could be a negative thing because you might be fearful of your encounters or your experience so much with other people that it's starting to cause you to withdraw, even so much that it's even the virtual connections aren't even there, right? And or you might be in a profession that requires you to do more, be more present during an actual crisis, and medical crisis specifically, that could also be a possible physical risk for yourself, right? And so there's elements that tell me that it could be a negative if you're looking at all of your surroundings, not just the one thing, right? So if you look at it like, it's not that I'm just withdrawn, it's that I'm withdrawn because I don't want to be sick. It's that I'm withdrawn because I'm afraid that something may happen to me. It's because I don't like my friends and I feel like they've all taken from me and now I'm done with it, right? I'm feeling less connected to the people that I love. And so right. So those are all those, when you start asking these questions as to what, not why, because why, and if anyone who works with me always knows, I say never ask a why question, because you're going to go into a circle, right? Why this? Why that? Why? You ever hear a kid when they were like, why is the moon? Why the earth? Why do? And they're like, no, right? So you don't ask a why question, ask a what, how, or when, right? So what is causing me to isolate and withdraw, right? Because then I have to come up with actual real things that have happened and or have happened to me, right? What's happening in the moment? I don't like my job. I don't like my husband. I don't like my spouse. I don't like the friendships that I have, right? So that's what's happening that's causing me to want to withdraw. But if I ask the why, then it's also putting the blame on me for some reason, right? So start with the right question, first off. And then if you get a number of checks that are kind of negative in that area, it's okay for you to say that I need to figure out how to get back to myself because this is a negative for me. Now, it could be a positive though, right? Because it could be that I just I don't have to be a social butterfly anymore, because people think that automatically social butterflies are like extroverts all the time. And the reality is that sometimes it's exhausting, and your body and your physical and your emotional self is costing you. And so this might be a rest that you never intended, but you got an opportunity to get. And so if you can ask yourself, what is causing me to withdraw? And it's about, I just need the rest. I'm too tired after work. I don't have the emotional energy. I've actually given what I can to make sure that everyone's supported and they seem to be doing well. And so now I can take a break, right? If you can say those things, then I do think that it's a positive, right? Like, so you have to really be okay with saying there is no right or wrong. It's really what's right for me. So I don't know if that answers the question fully, but I hope that it makes you at least give yourself permission for it to be right for you, and or give yourself permission to reflect and determine if you need to do something different to be healthy, right? Because I feel like if we put right or wrong in that, it also puts you in a corner to have to work on something that might be like, you don't really need to, you just need to rest. Like, and those people who waiting on you to be the social butterfly can sit down for a second. Like we can all sit down for a minute. Like, but I do know that I really would say for like my healthcare workers, people who are actually doing the physical connection to COVID-19, like where they actually first responders are doing work, I think that has to be a major consideration in if this is something that you can endure related to like being the social butterfly or withdrawn. It really might be about the fact that you are experiencing vicarious trauma. And as a result, that vicarious trauma has now turned into symptoms that reflect very similar to depression. And so being mindful that I can't personally answer that question, but if those factors play into why you're withdrawn, then you do want to reflect on it, because then there's an area of satisfaction that you may even lose with life in general. And that's where that hope starts to kind of dim out, relationships start to get impacted, and you're not your best self or your healthiest self.
No, that was good. I know like the first 2 or 3 weeks that we were in a quarantine, and I began to see close friends that were really struggling, and then a lot of social media posts, and I wasn't. And I mean, it's not to say that there were definitely changes. Like I had tons of work events that were canceled because of, the fact that everyone was trying to take measures to keep everyone safe. So it's not to say that I didn't have different areas of my life that wasn't impacted, but I wasn't responding in a way of, it wasn't affecting me negatively, let me say, emotionally, to the point that I saw other people. So I did have to take a moment where it's like, is something wrong with me? Where it's like, and then I had to, same thing what Sharea was saying, just go through that own process with myself, like, okay, let me start doing a mental check-in. What else is going on? How am I feeling about the people around me and stuff going on? And the truth of the matter is that I was okay. I mean, thankfully, I have good friends. My family was okay. And I appreciated the fact that I did have some time to just rest and reflect, and to have time to just think, like more time than I normally would have had to really think about a lot of areas. And so for me going through that process, I was just like, no, it's okay. And so I have days where I don't talk to anyone. And it's not because I'm intentionally trying to isolate, but it's like, I'm okay with spending time with myself today. And then there's other times where we're doing the group chats and we're playing games, we're having a ladies' night really over Zoom, or doing other things, or I'll call people or they'll call me. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with being able to do both. And I know that I'm okay. Now, if for instance, now the past 2 days, I would say it's been a little bit more frustrating here, the different news reports we talked about yesterday. But so I just needed some time to process. I know in that moment I wasn't okay, so I needed time to process my own feelings. But just overall, like, I've enjoyed the me time.
But I think that's acceptable. I think I know that we were going to talk about me time, about especially with parents and spouses or people who are in the home with family members. It can become real easy to think that you don't need me time, but you really do. And or that you're getting me time by like sleep or work. But the reality is that commute that you used to have, that car ride where you would listen to the music, or that train ride, depending on where you are, like those things are now gone. right? And so you have no break in between your work and your life, even if you physically are moving to a different room. So how do I honor that I still need to be able to get some me time? And literally I have I have some clients who will literally go into the car and be like, I know you want to see me, or I know we're going to do this meeting, but can I do it in my car on the phone? I'm like, if that's what makes you satisfied in the moment, I'm going to let you have it, because that might be your only hour where you're not at mommy, the worker, like or somebody's role, right? And so if that means that you just want to be away and you have to steal the moment, I say steal it. I say for me personally, I've now made sure taking walks outside to get my little bit of me time, or even trying to get in the tub earlier and staying there longer. Like finding your little me times that are separate from other people are important, even if you don't realize it, right? Because you love your family, but they exhausted.
They need a break sometimes.
Yeah, and you may not have realized it, but your job, your commute, whatever that may have been your one moment to really just breathe. And trying to find those breaths during the day when you're all together is harder, but go find them and be okay with finding them. And if someone is, and including our children, if someone is not able to understand that, you have to help them you modeling a behavior that you want them for them themselves, right? So if you have teenagers, if you have middle-aged kids, you want to make sure you model to them that me time is important, so that they learn that they need to have times to themselves, times when they can be still. You might need to teach. I really am, like, all of my adolescents right now have been learning proper meditation, because you're home and I can't imagine your parents aren't tired. And so I'm going to help you to kind of calm down right before bed, and or to give yourself a break even from your parent who might actually be the issue for you, because it may be the other way around, right? So being able to know that you need your me time, and it's okay to ask for it regardless of what title or hat you're wearing. Even moms need breaks. Like,
absolutely.
You're not superwoman, right? Like, yeah, you're not superwoman. That's why I already went there. I know we want to be sometimes, but we don't need to be. Sometimes you just need to rest. So
absolutely.
Any other coping skills that we haven't hit on? Because we try to make sure we hit on the ones we always do each week. Sleep routine. So I am going to be 100 and be honest with y'all today. I had the worst night sleeping last night. Now, mind you, I'm working with a client yesterday, giving her all these tools and tips around sleep and how to make sure she prepares for it. And she's like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do this. And I could not get to sleep until like 4 a.m, which is unheard of for me. And so having skipped my nightly routine and just kind of showered and jumped into bed, I realized that it was my fault. This one is on me. Because I could have done better with my routine, and I could have turned the television off a lot sooner. But I guilty pleasure, I absolutely love this show called Bosch. And it's like this old detective guy who's kind of like solving crimes in LA. And I enjoy it. It really, like, and I was like, oh, I'm going to watch 1. And then somehow I ended up on 3. And so it became a much longer night because I just did not even follow my own tools that I tell people to use and that I normally use. And so I will say that tonight, the plan is my husband and I are going to eat dinner earlier than normal. So that way I can get in the tub tonight earlier and stay a little bit longer. And then I'm going to turn the television off a lot earlier. And instead of television right before bed, I'm actually going to read. And so that way I can pull myself down and kind of be restful. And then I'm going to hopefully, because this is also, when you say you're tired and you can't get sleep, I'm going to hopefully try to do a level of meditation that will kind of help me to a guided meditation that will help me go to sleep. So fingers crossed. Now, me not going to sleep at 4 meant I didn't wake up until late. So in some ways I won. But it's neither here nor there. So a sleep routine, the importance of it, and acknowledging that what are you struggling with that caused you not to sleep? So if I am 100% honest, it had a lot to do with my routine, but it also had to do with Mother's Day is coming up. And I didn't acknowledge that out loud until this morning. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize it. And I think I've been avoiding the subject or the view of it, but it hit me last night, and then therefore I couldn't sleep. And so being okay with that allowed me to breathe, because I was like, oh, at least I know where this heavier emotion that's preventing me from sleep is coming from. Now I can at least acknowledge it, and I can journal, I can pray, I can do the things that I need to do to take care of myself, right? And so being able to do that is also helpful for our emotional boundaries, but also acknowledging our emotions that we have to work on. And our sleep routine. What is our other ones? We talked about limited
exercise, eating healthy.
Yes, get your exercise, right? Okay. I don't know. Like, I think if we all winning if we just stay somewhere around the weight we were. Like,
because I fell off my exercise.
I'm like,
I had to get back on it.
As good as I am, and I do it for the purpose of mindfulness and removing myself from work, between work and home. So that's my like drive home is my workout. And so literally at 6 o'clock, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do something. And it gives me a break in between the day. But I also realize that that's not everyone's expectation for themselves and or need for themselves, because you may not have the energy when dealing with a full family, when dealing with a full-time job, or having to navigate work in and out of the house. So I don't want you to hear exercise as this. If you don't do that, you're not going to be healthy. But I do want you to hear that because we're not moving as much, to move a little bit more, to make sure that you find the extra steps where you can. If that means instead of sitting at the table or sitting to watch a show, you stand up and take a couple steps to the kitchen and back from the kitchen to your chair, whatever the case is. Just move a little bit more so that your body can stay healthy in the sense that you're safe. And eat well, right? So try to balance some of your meals. I think, again, similar to the exercise, I'm not going to shame anyone in this area, because all of us are struggling to get to grocery stores, trying to maintain produce in your house is different. It's just a number of different things. I did see something really cool. Someone in the group was doing a garden, like starting a little garden, and was showing people how to plant seeds and stuff. So that might be an option to start looking at how I can start using, creating some kind of healthier version of the things that I eat on my own time versus having to always go to the store. So just finding different ways to take care of yourself, but not punish yourself and or feel guilty if you're not doing it perfectly or the way you were doing it before COVID-19. And drink some water. Water. Okay, so I know at most of these happy hours / virtuals / all of this, there are drinks, right? And I am guilty, and I'm going to sit here and pretend like I'm not, right? But make sure that on the flip, you're also taking in enough water every single day to impact your health, because we're not moving as much, because we're not going outside and getting as much vitamin D, because we're not doing a lot of the physical wellness things that are naturally happen when we're out in the world. We have to be more strategic with even how much water we drink so that our bodies can be healing itself and taking care of itself in the moment. So hydrate. Is that all of them? Did we catch all of them?
Yeah, I think we hit all of them.
I feel like we did.
Because we talked about some of them in the beginning.
Okay. And that's it then, right? I guess we go.
Yeah. We're 3 minutes over.
Oh, my bad. Oh, sorry, people. We're a little over. If you're still sticking with us, that means you're in it to win it. However, I want to make sure before we always end, we give everyone an opportunity to ask any questions or make any statements that they want regarding some of the things that we talked about coping, but even what we talked about earlier related to racial trauma and the current state of the news media and the Black lives that have been lost again, and the injustices of the world. So if you want to talk about any of those or have any questions, please, we are here and we are waiting, and I'm going to be quiet for a second.
And shout out to Sasha for being our, top engager today in the chat. Thank you so much. Like, no problems at all. Like with your comments and everything. I know shit's long-winded. I'm way long-winded, so
yeah, I'm like, y'all
long-winded people unite.
We are in this together because I'm long-winded. Right. I sometimes be trying to stop myself, and I'm like, that's enough.
No, but thank you so much, Sasha, though, for watching and supporting. You're such a supporter. I really appreciate that, and asking questions and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.